Tax the rich, pay the people, spread the power. Sounds like a great idea. It's not radical, is it? It's not. And I've got the founder and president of Patriotic Millionaires, Erica Payne, here to break down those pillars for that organization. It's a group of wealthy, high net worth individuals that are saying, you know what? The wealth disparity in this country is actually the worst thing that has happened in decades. And it just makes sense to pay a livable wage. So why the hell are the billionaires getting the tax cuts while the working Americans getting screwed? Take a listen, because Erica Payne has a lot of amazing ideas for you to get to your electeds so they understand that we're not going to take it lying down. And joining me now, I have the privilege of having Erica Payne, the founder and president of Patriotic Millionaires. Erica, I have been excited to have this conversation. I'm also thrilled because we're going to have it with the backdrop of a potential deal that's disappointing a lot of Americans today. But before we get ahead of ourselves, talk about what Patriotic Millionaires is, because it sounds very intriguing.
Yeah. So Patriotic Millionaires is a group of high net worth Americans. They have incomes of at least $1 million a year or assets of at least $5 million a year. And they came together 16 years ago during the lame duck session of Congress when it became clear that President Obama was going to cave to Republican demands to extend the Bush tax cuts. And so here's Mr. Hopey Changey coming into office and making sure that everything stays exactly the same. So 56 people signed a letter that said, for the good of the country, raise my taxes. I very intentionally named them Patriotic Millionaires because paying taxes is fundamentally part of your patriotic duty. And it's embarrassing for all of us, for people as rich as so many people are, to gripe about their taxes as much as they do. And so they started with a very simple thing: let the Bush tax cuts expire. But then we had a fight for 15. The folks walked off, the fast food restaurateurs, the restaurant owners and restaurant workers walked off the job. We launched a campaign called Smart Capitalist for American Prosperity to talk about how important that pre-distribution piece is. And so for 16 years, we've been fighting to tax the rich, pay the people, and spread the power.
So it goes without saying then, Erica, you've seen a lot when it's come to DC politics.
Oh, yes.
You just mentioned this, Obama 16 years ago. You and I are sitting here November 10th, 2025, in the midst of day 41 of a government shutdown, courtesy of Trump regime 2.0. Everything kind of stays the same and yet is different, right? Your thoughts about what the hell is going on right now? Because I think people are incredibly disappointed that a group like yours is willing to step up and say, change the tax code, change the way that we're looking at, financial and economic prosperity in this country. An affordable, livable wage is not a radical progressive idea, and we're stepping up to be able to facilitate this. And yet, do you feel like it's falling on deaf ears?
So I don't think it's falling on deaf ears. I think that we are at the end of a very long cycle that started after the 1964 Barry Goldwater defeat. And what happened is that a group of multi-millionaires started funding a network of institutions, think tanks, legal advocacy groups, media monitoring groups. And over 60 years, they turned the entire country to the right. And they took over all of the Republican Party and exactly enough of the Democratic Party that it doesn't matter who's in charge, everything stays the same. And let me be clear. So in 2017, I'll just hit on the tax piece, Katie.
Yeah, please.
In 2017, Republicans on a party line vote rewrote the entire American tax code. In 2018, for the first time in American history, billionaires paid a lower effective tax rate than every single other group of people in the country. Okay, so then fast forward to the Democrat trifecta. Okay, so you would think Democrats are going to do something in contrast to that.
Yeah.
Well, Democrats took over and they basically didn't do anything. They did two things. They increased the amount of funding going into the IRS, which promptly got dismantled when Republicans took over the House. The very first vote they did was to dismantle that extra money for enforcement. So we lose $1 trillion a year in enforcement. And so Democrats were able to get a little bit of money for enforcement. And then they backed a global minimum tax, which then subsequently got punted. But I mean, basically, Democrats took over the government and they couldn't even close the carried interest loophole, which I'm sure lots of your folks listening are not deep into tax policy. But of all of the egregious tax loopholes in the entire tax code, of which there are an official count of a bajillion, this is actually the single most egregious tax loophole, and they couldn't even close that one. And so Democrats have absolutely no intention of taxing their donors any more than Republicans do. And I'll take you back to, on the other side, the pre-distribution side, you can pay people or you can tax and redistribute. We think you need to do both to have a stable society. Well, we were in the middle of a global pandemic, and Bernie Sanders put up an amendment to a COVID relief package that would have raised minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Oh, we remember that.
Eight Democrats voted against it. Okay. And so I think that what people have to actually fundamentally understand in this moment, when they are confused about the non-deal that Schumer and the Democrats just took, is that they're not on your side. Democrats, it's not that Democrats are on your side and Republicans are on somebody else's side. There's a sufficient number of both parties that are on the billionaire side, and everybody else, good luck. And so we saw that play out in how this deal is cut, how the negotiations happened. I mean, Katie, literally, Chuck Schumer floated a deal that was an inadequate deal that they didn't even take on a Friday after Democrats had the most decisive
the 1 year
probably. Yeah. I mean,
1 year extension.
People were winning by 13 points. This was not a squeaker. And Chuck Schumer, instead of letting people even have a victory party this weekend, Chuck Schumer throws out a deal that he then backed out of. I mean, this is like actually pathetic and weird and embarrassing for everyone.
Yeah, somebody I spoke to off the record was like, the Senate Democrats are pissing in the party punch from that big win that we got in Tuesday while we're still at the party.
Well, I mean, they don't want people to feel like they can win. I mean, they really, if you wanted to depress your base, do exactly what you just did in the way that you just did it. And we can talk about some of the specifics, Katie, like the fact that it's exactly 8 votes, how many votes were behind that, who voted, who didn't vote, who's in this. I mean, the palace intrigue on this side of people who are not political insiders is actually really fascinating, because they played this card in a very specific way with great deliberation, and they knew exactly what they were doing. And they made a calculus that their base doesn't have anywhere to go, and that they're going to win next year anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's stay on this. I mean, it's a little bit of a detour from this, but yet it's still related, because it's 8 Senate Democrats, 2 of whom are retiring at the end of their terms, none of whom are up for re-election in 2026. That was, I don't know, sacrificial lambs is one construction of it, Erica, is one way people are looking at it. I mean, one of them was an independent, let's say Angus King, but he caucuses with the Dems, right? So for all intents and purposes, he's looked at as being
retiring. I mean, he's old as the hill. So if you literally just go through the vote count, there are about 14 of them who basically wanted this to be over. And so they just sat in a room and decided which 8 were most able to take the hit. And just case in point, Tim Kaine took a vote that Mark Warner didn't take.
That's
so
right.
Why did Mark Warner not take that vote? Mark Warner didn't take that vote because he's up, right? And like Jeanne Shaheen and Maggie Hassan, Jeanne Shaheen's got to give cover to Maggie Hassan. I mean, I'll tell you, if they understand their politics on it, because they didn't have Ossoff and Warnock take the vote. They found 8 people other than Ossoff and Warnock. Durbin is retiring. Shaheen is retiring. King is not up till 30, and he's old and he's not going to run.
Yeah, nobody else was up next year.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So,
but is there some nobility then that you're suggesting that's in the fact that these 8 people were willing to take it on the chin, though? I mean,
no. I'm saying something different, Katie. I'm saying they're not taking it on the chin
because they really don't have any exposure.
It doesn't matter to them. Not to mention the fact that they probably set themselves up to get a nice cush lobbying job if they leave the Senate and decide they want to do something. Okay, so I mean, they have, in the same way that Kirsten Sinema, when she refused to vote to close the carried interest loophole, that was her resume for KKR and the rest of the private equity funds. I mean, these are job interviews for future very lucrative positions. These are not principled stances. And what's most offensive about it, Katie, is that if you tell them that this was not a principled stand, what they're going to do is come back and say, well, you just want poor people to starve. And my answer to that is the pain that people in this country are going to go through as this administration rides roughshod over any opposition is going to be the likes of which we have not seen. And what they've done here is executed 40 days worth of pain on people and gotten a pinky promise of gain, a pinky promise for a vote, possibly on something.
And as a lawyer by trade, I was like, look, an agreement to agree is not a binding contract. So there's nothing enforceable about it. There's no enforceable contract here. It's not even a part of the legislative text, this idea of the Senate vote in December. The only saving grace is the Democrats are going to actually draft the bill itself. So the language could be particularly damning, but there's no obligation to do it. It's a whole shit show. So I will say this. One of your colleagues and one of the most amazing people at Patriotic Millionaires is Morris Pearl. And he wrote something that I wanted to read out loud and share with you. He said, wealthy people like me have an incredible amount of power and influence over American politics. Lawmakers spend hours upon hours talking to donors, but can barely spend any kind of meaningful time with most of their constituents. The end result is a system of government that responds to the preferences of the wealthy and well-connected while ignoring the concerns and needs of everyone else. I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about. Access is what's driving America right now. Access and the ability for constituents that don't have a lot of money to be heard. Trump has really made it a trademark of his administration. I mean, the billionaire bromance is particularly egregious with him. And I'm not talking, Erica, just like the Justin Sons and the CZs that are getting the pardons and the lack. I often say being a white collar criminal, it's the best time of your life right now with this administration. But just the everyday Americans are just getting screwed. So what is the money agenda? What is the money agenda that Patriotic Millionaires is putting forth?
The money agenda is, I think it's the best idea since sliced bread. It
Okay.
really is. Look, we've got a political economy, and I say those words deliberately. It's an economy that is structured in the political arena. So never just think of it as an economy. It doesn't exist in nature. It is structured by human beings. We have a political economy that has funneled $80 trillion away from the 90% in this country to the 1% since the mid-70s.
Unbelievable.
We have created a dynamic where we are going to become more unequal more quickly over time. We're at human history levels of inequality. We've got billionaires taking joyrides into space while the people who work for them sleep in their cars, and the people who are sleeping in their cars pay twice the tax rate as the people in the little blue jumpsuits. So that's where we've gotten to. We've gotten to it with the participation of both political parties over 60 years. And Patriotic Millionaires have a very simple idea. Restructure the economy so it actually works for working people, and that will make it work for everybody else too. And so this is a 4-part agenda. I'm going to run through it for you. Number 1, raise the minimum wage to the actual cost of living for a single adult with no children. The minimum wage in America today is $7.25. The cost of living in the United States of America is $45,700 a year for a single adult with no children. That's around $21 a year. Raise the minimum wage to the cost of living. Eliminate the federal income tax burden up to the cost of living so that the first thing you're responsible for is standing on your own 2 feet and taking care of yourself. You know who doesn't actually need SNAP benefits? People who make enough money from their job that they can afford food. So
Amen.
Let's do pre-distribution. And you know who the top beneficiaries of SNAP benefits are? Walmart employees. Okay. How about raise Walmart pay to $21 an hour at a minimum? So that's number 2. Number 3, quit treating rich people's money as better than everybody else's money. Right now, if you make money off investments, you pay half the tax rate of people who actually work for a living. So somebody's sitting on the beach, clicking a button on an E-Trade account, they pay $0 on their capital gains rate. If you make the same amount of money working, you'll pay taxes on that. So if you make $100,000 a year working and somebody else makes $100,000 a year on a capital gain, the working person pays $9,000 more per year than the person sitting on a beach clicking an E-Trade account. I think that's wrong. Our members think that's wrong. So those are the three core elements of the money agenda. Minimum wage to the cost of living, eliminate federal income tax up to the cost of living, treat all money equally. And then the fourth is a bucket that just it'll be a bunch of legislation and a bunch of ideas, but it's how do you break up an oligarchy that has taken its place in power in the United States. We need to break up oligarchical wealth in the same way that we break up monopolistic corporate power.
Erica, it goes without saying then, and I forgive me for stating the obvious, but you and others could, though, access legislators and people in positions of power that are controlling those levers to be able to effectuate this, because it sounds incredible and it makes sense. So what are the biggest obstacles you're encountering to be able to actually implement on these pillars?
The same ones who voted for the deal that they just took. I mean, look, not all of them. That's not true. I mean, look, the obstacles that we face are the same obstacles anybody faces. These politicians don't want to tax their donors, but some of them do. And so I want to point out Delia Ramirez is a congresswoman. She introduced the Equal Tax Act. We have introduced that piece of legislation. So if you want to know who's on your side and who's on the side of multimillionaires having more money than paying lower taxes than you, look who's on that bill. Another piece of legislation, an idea that we've been working on forever, is this cost of living exemption on federal taxes. It's a cost of living exemption, and it's paid for by millionaires. So we basically eliminate federal income tax up to $45,700, shift all the costs to people like our members who make more than $1 million a year. So there's a little surtax on the first dollar after $1 million. This is the hottest idea on the planet. Senator Chris Van Hollen is introducing a piece of legislation in the next couple of weeks that is basically this idea. It is powerful. And this idea is the litmus test, Katie. Okay, you can talk to any politicians and they'll go around and say why they made this decision on the shutdown, yada, yada, yada. This bill gives a tax cut to 130 million people.
Whoa.
Whom the government, the federal government, is currently taxing them into poverty. The government starts taxing people when they make $16,000 a year. You need at least $45,700 a year to support yourself. That gives you $9 a day for food. Okay. We want to eliminate that $16,000 to $45,700. And all the lost revenues go to people north of $1 million. So it's literally 130 million people get a tax cut. About 1 million people pay slightly higher in taxes on their first dollar over $1 million. Everything else stays the same. It is 100% deficit neutral. It is literally a shift from one group away from working people onto the political donor class. So as this bill gets introduced, it's going to be introduced in the next couple of weeks. Katie, I want to come back on this show and I want to start giving you a daily report on who is on this bill and why they aren't on the bill. So we've got great people who are moving this bill through behind the scenes. When it gets introduced, we're going to see who's on that bill. And I would suggest that anybody who's not on that bill needs to retire. Because here's the thing, Katie, this is the important thing. Patriotic Millionaires, this is not a bunch of bleeding heart liberals. These are rich people who like being rich, who plan to continue to stay rich and want to live in a rich, stable, and free country. Right. They are not doing this out of some misplaced sense of altruism. Okay. They want to live somewhere decent, that is not miserable. And we have created an economy where millions of people are miserable. Millions of people cannot make ends meet. Millions of people we just changed a deal on a government because people can't eat. That's the economy that we have created in this country that both political parties have been a part of. And so we're now at a place where we have to just look at how do you structure an economy so that it delivers the results you need for a stable country. And the wage floor cannot be $725 if you want to live somewhere decent. Okay. We can't transfer $80 trillion of money to the top 1% and expect that the society is going to hang together. So this is literally how do you structure an economy in the 21st century in the face of AI, globalization, and robotics to ensure that a sufficient number of your people are sufficiently well-fed and well-housed so that you can be somewhere stable and not have to drive around in an armored car, not have to have guards parading around your house. We are in the middle of a place where the biggest threat to wealthy people is societal breakdown, and we are witnessing societal breakdown as we sit here today. So Patriotic Millionaires, we're completely nonpartisan. We can't stand most politicians on both sides. This is a time when working people across the political aisle need to come together and set aside their social differences, because billionaires are funding both sides of the social war while they're stealing your money. We have a money agenda. That's the answer. This is the answer. Get behind the money agenda.
Let me tell you something. I think the results from last week, Tuesday, were a resounding indictment of how things were going, and an incredible endorsement of the money agenda, because affordability won the day. Affordability took pole position, I think, in those elections. Public safety and other kind of independent issues, but affordability really was top of mind, which is part of the reason why this is such a salty, salt in the wound kind of moment for us right now as we look at this deal. But the reality is, people are feeling the haves and the have-nots divide becoming increasingly acutely painful, and it speaks to what the goal is. Again, it sounds feasible, Erica. It doesn't sound like it's an impossibility. And you guys are researching this, and you guys are looking at the data points. It's not like you're just pulling it out of your ass and being like, look, we think this is a good idea. I mean, you guys have really thoughtfully looked at the numbers on this.
No, we have been working on this agenda for 16 years. And the reality is, we have an economy where people are working for billion-dollar corporations, and they are making 2/3 what it actually costs to support themselves. I mean, I've got a message for business people, whether you're the president of Walmart or the head of a small business. If you can't afford to pay someone something they can live on, you can't afford an employee. That needs to be where we start. And this is 40 hours. You add in AI, robotics, and all of these other advances we're making. What we could do is take a 40-hour week and shrink it to a 35-hour week or a 30-hour week, make that prosperity be built into the mathematics of the structure of the economy. If the folks who are in charge right now stay in charge, what's going to happen is that going from 1 out of 8 people needing SNAP benefits, it's going to be 4 out of 8 people needing SNAP benefits, because if they don't change the amount of money you're bringing home every day, how are you going to afford food? That's the question. So this is about paying people something they can live on, and making sure that we don't have a concentration of wealth the way that we have right now, where people like Elon Musk control the political system, because there is a point where money is not money, it is power. And when we pass that point, we have to take away their power. And the only way to take away their power is to take away their money. And the only way to do that is through taxation. And this is not about a 2% wealth tax. This is about an aggressive wealth tax that makes the billionaires in this country less rich and moves that money to working people. Because guess what? Since 1975, the billionaire class stole $80 trillion from working people. Let's get that money back into the pockets of working people, and then we'll sit around and figure out what we need to do from there. The money agenda is the most basic, non-radical restructuring of an economy that is on the table today. And so I would suggest that people look at this one, and if you've got something that's better, come on in and talk to us. We want to hear it from you. But this is the way to go.
And thus concludes the sermon at the Church of Erica Payne. I mean, again, I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you, and you are welcome to come back at any time on any of my platforms to have these conversations, because I feel like the resonance is there, and I know a lot of people are going to say amen as well. And I just am trying to, amplify this message, because I do think our politicians in DC need to understand that there's millions of people that will not stand silent while this continues to be perpetrated on them.
Well, and here's the thing, Katie, it's insult to injury. I mean, you look at those election results on Tuesday where working people won.
Yeah.
Okay, working people won. They spoke. Chuck Schumer didn't even wait until Monday to float a deal. 3 days later, he puts out a deal that then got rejected in exchange for a pinky promise. I mean, this is literally all pain, no gain. There was no reason to go through this 40-day exercise if they were going to end it here. So look, here's the thing, water under the bridge. It's done. The deal is done. So what are we going to do from here? The thing to do from here is to go to your senators and say, are you going to back the money agenda? And specifically, are you going to be an original co-sponsor of the cost of living tax cut paid for by millionaires? The cost of living tax cut paid for by millionaires. Are you willing to tax your donors so that working people can afford to eat? That is the question. And I want to know how many Democrats, how many Republicans are going to get on this bill. And what might be interesting is that Josh Hawley might get on the bill before Chuck Schumer does.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is making all kinds of noise. Right?
Rand Paul.
I don't know what happened to her, but like we've got some real changes that we need to make. And it's real clear that the people in charge aren't going to make them.
Where can people go to learn more and to support Patriotic Millionaires?
So go to patrioticmillionaires.org. The first thing you'll see on there is the money agenda. Go in there, read more about it, sign up for our stuff. We're telling people constantly this bill is going to be introduced soon. We will explain to you exactly how to use your political power in order to make good things happen. And here's the thing I want to leave you with, Katie. Working people have more power than billionaires if they use it. And I'll tell you what, we've never been at a point in American history in my lifetime where both sides were at least pretending to care about working people. So working people, I mean, none of them give a shit. Let's be real honest. But at least both sides are currently pretending to. And there's an opening there. So if working class people come together and demand the money agenda, we will get the money agenda signed into law in January of 2029 when a new president takes the oath of office.
Erica Payne, it has been a privilege to spend this time with you. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for making all of us smarter about what's really at stake. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate it.
Katie Phang here. We launched the Katie Phang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. Straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.